Welcome to part 2 of our video on a person who invented the world's most advanced military technology for one country but sold it to another country for money. If you have not watched part 1 of this video series, then do watch it so that you can understand today's part easily. Link to that video is in the description. In 2004, while Gowadia was communicating with foreign customers, the FBI launched an investigation into an engineer in California named Chi Mak.
Intelligence Studio. Do subscribe and like the video.
Mark had emigrated from Hong Kong to the US in the late 1970s and worked since 1988 for the defense contractor Power Paragon, based in Anaheim, California. The FBI believed Mac had been passing military technology secrets to China for years, and its high-stakes investigation became one of the agency's biggest counterintelligence investigations ever, eventually uncovering a Chinese spy ring operating in the United States. The investigation into Mac, who was convicted in 2008 and sentenced to 24 years in prison, shed some light on Chinese efforts to obtain US military secrets. According to Isaac Stonefish, CEO and founder of Strategy Risks, a consulting firm that helps clients manage geopolitical exposure, especially in China, the Chinese government has two primary means of practicing espionage abroad. It works directly through the efforts of the Chinese Communist Party and institutions under it, such as the People's Liberation Army, the party's armed wing, or groups like the United Front, a party organization that seeks to weaken the party's enemies. It also conducts espionage via a broad ecosystem of entities, including private businesses, that have some ties to the party but that mostly have profit-driven motives. When targeting individuals for information, the Chinese often use financial incentives and appeal to vanity, both of which appeared to apply in the Gowadia case, according to Stonefish. A lot of this is about ego, he says, making people feel their expertise is really valued, that they're not appreciated in their jobs, but they will be in China. China was working on programs for stealth cruise missiles and a stealth bomber and was eager to get its hands on America's stealth technology. During the Kosovo War, when America's first stealth jet, the F-117, was shot down, Chinese agents were sent to scour the land, buying up parts of the plane from local farmers. Experts believe the parts gathered were reverse-engineered to help develop China's first stealth fighter, the Chengdu J-20, which made its maiden flight in 2011 and entered service in 2017. The stealth bomber was the next front, and by the turn of the century, the Chinese were far behind. While the B-2 bomber was flying undetected over Serbian airspace, Chinese engineers struggled to overcome a lack of aircraft design experience, since much of its fleet was based on Soviet airplanes from the 1950s and 60s. A stealth bomber would have been of particular interest to Chinese intelligence. It was symbolically important for China, a direct response to the B-2 that would signal the Chinese military's ability to stay on par with the US, at least in appearances. The H-20 is believed to have the capability of traveling 4,970 miles with 10 tons of bombs, putting US territories, including Guam, home of Andersen Air Force Base, within striking range. On July 28, 2003, Gowadia made the short trip from Hong Kong to Shenzhen to cross into the People's Republic of China, PRC. He was accompanied by two men, Henry Nio and Tommy Wong. Wong was Gowadia's handler in China, according to the trial testimony of an FBI agent. He worked for the Chinese government's Foreign Exports Bureau, while Nio had facilitated a meeting in Hong Kong to pitch Gowadia's services to the Chinese. Both Nio and Wong were listed as unindicted co-conspirators in the Gowadia case, but little is publicly known about the two men or how Gowadia came into contact with them. Neither Nio or Wong were charged with any crimes. Although China was developing its own stealth aircraft at the time, the Chinese had another goal in mind, developing a cruise missile with stealth capabilities. At the Shenzhen border crossing, Wong had arranged for Gowadia to enter the country without registering his passport in order to conceal his travel. From there, the group travelled to Chengdu, a city of more than 16 million in central China's Sichuan province, and home to a centre for the research and development of Chinese fighter aircraft and cruise missiles. In Chengdu, according to the government indictment against him, Gowadia delivered a presentation, aided by a PowerPoint file, to Chinese officials about low observable technologies, propulsion systems in other words, that would make the missiles difficult to track through radar, infrared and other detection technologies, similar to the kinds of systems he worked on with the B-2. His presentation included information and data that the US government had classified as secret, according to the indictment. It was Gowadia's first trip to China, and he spent about a week in the country. Before departing, Neo paid him $15,000 in cash for his services, according to the indictment. When Gowadia flew back to Hawaii on August 12, 2003, he told US customs officials that the cash had been intended to purchase an antique desk overseas. At the time, Gowadia was reportedly struggling to cover the $15,000 monthly mortgage on his Haiku home, investigators believed. According to the prosecution, over the next few months, Gowadia and Wong emailed back and forth to discuss payment and what information Chinese officials were looking to obtain from Gowadia before they would commit to further fund his work for them. In late October 2003, Gowadia again travelled to China through Hong Kong. In Shenzhen, he met with government officials and was shown test data for an exhaust nozzle that China was developing for its cruise missile, according to the indictment. Gowadia provided an assessment of the data and offered his suggested design fixes. During the meeting, Gowadia and the Chinese officials discussed Gowadia's proposal to design and help develop a low-observable exhaust nozzle, which would reduce infrared signature for a Chinese cruise missile. Over the next few months, Gowadia and Wong exchanged emails where they haggled over the price of Gowadia's services. An FBI agent testified at trial that they created alias email accounts and used code names. Gowadia was Catcher Monkey and Wong was Fly Monkey King. In order to bolster his case, he shared with Wong secret documents with classified information that he had access to. Wong eventually agreed to Gowadia's price, and on April 15, 2004, he sent an invoice for $19,500 for his work on the cruise missile nozzle. That same month, according to the indictment, Gowadia flew from Honolulu to Hong Kong for the third time. He travelled into mainland China without having his passport stamped, and in Shenzhen, he met with Chinese engineers who shared with him cruise missile system requirements and other data. He took the information back to Hawaii. He invoiced Wong for another $20,000 and instructed him to wire the money to his company bank account at UBS in Switzerland. Over the next few months, using the information he had obtained in China, Gowadia designed a low observable exhaust nozzle for reduced infrared heat signature for Chinese cruise missiles, according to the indictment. An FBI agent testified at trial that Gowadia analyzed the lock-on range of the modified cruise missile against US air-to-air missiles and put the data in a PowerPoint presentation he titled Study 1. He made several more trips to China to work on the missile project and on November 27, 2004, travelled to Beijing to watch the testing of the exhaust nozzle, the indictment further stated. For the next year, Gowadia continued to communicate with Wong and travel to China, aiding in the development of the exhaust nozzle and sharing information classified as secret with Chinese officials. He also allegedly shared classified information regarding lock-on range for infrared missiles against the B-2 and other undefined classified information about the B-2. The government alleged that Gowadia received around $110,000 for his visits to China over the 3 years. In order to hide the money he was being paid by the Chinese, he used offshore accounts and set up a Liechtenstein charity purportedly for the benefit of children. In reality, he never donated money to any charity through the foundation. In the spring of 2004, Gowadia landed on law enforcement's radar. A furniture container addressed to Gowadia arrived in Honolulu, and when Customs and Border Patrol agents opened it, they found a box of documents that included contracts and information about aircraft infrared suppression technology. In April and again in June, Gowadia was flagged at the airport before outbound flights and searched for documents. He argued that the searches were unreasonable and violated his Fourth Amendment right. but the documents were seized regardless and handed over to FBI special agent named Thatcher Mahajirin. The FBI spent more than a year gathering information on Gowadia, combing through the documents seized by border officials, surveilling his property, and conducting a forensic analysis on his finances. By October 2005, the agency had enough information to obtain a warrant to search his house. As agents from the FBI and Air Force searched Gowadia's home on October 13, 2005, removing boxes and stacks of files, Special Agent Tamura Wageman walked down the property's driveway to fetch Special Agent Mahajirin, who was the investigation's leader. Tamura told him the house was secure and that he could now speak with Gowadia. For more than a year, Mahajirin had been working with the FBI's Field Intelligence Group in Honolulu to analyze and interpret the documents seized from Gowadia at the airport. They also analyzed Gowadia's financial data that Mahajirin had obtained and were able to link transactions to his activity in China. Between 1999 and 2003, Gowadia's engineering consulting business, NS Gowadia Inc., declared nearly $750,000. The New York Times reported this in 2005. According to Mahajirin's testimony in court, Gowadia seemed excitable and confused and wanted an explanation about what was going on. "This is just a giant mistake," Gowadia said. The afternoon sun was beaming down and the temperature had reached 85 degrees, so Mahajirin suggested they speak in a shaded area. Gowadia agreed. Gowadia led Mahajirin through his garage, where a Jaguar and a Honda were parked, into a room with the table and chairs that the FBI had already cleared. Gowadia was wearing a t-shirt, shorts and a gardening hat, which he removed when they sat. Mahajirin found Gowadia eager to talk. "This is all a mistake," Gowadia insisted. "You shouldn't be here." Gowadia spoke rapidly. Another agent took notes, but the monologue was difficult to follow. Gowadia said it was all a misunderstanding, fueled by a vindictive plot by one of his competitors. He railed off a number of technical terms and names so rapidly that the agent was having a hard time taking notes of the conversation. The agents gave Gowadia some paper to write a statement. He wrote that he was declining an attorney, was willing to cooperate, and had been read his rights by the agents. He went on to describe his business and finances and stated that he had no classified documents in his home. They spoke until after 8:30 p.m. Mahajirin believed he had developed a good rapport with Gowadia and said they could continue speaking the next day. They walked through the house into the backyard to the lanai overlooking the ocean where other agents were waiting. At some point, Cheryl Gowadia cooked her husband some eggs. Rest of the story will be in the part 3 of this video series, which will be uploaded soon to YouTube. Till then, take care and bye.
And do subscribe to the channel.